Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
The world-famous Laguna Burger is beautifully handcrafted. A burger that's created from certified Angus beef, sinfully cooked to juicy perfection, and garnished with New Mexico's Hatch green chili. Tempt your taste buds with mouth-watering fresh ingredients.
Cut! We're gonna need another Laguna Burger.
Try the irresistible, world-famous Laguna Burger. Visit thelagunaburger.com. It's fresh with a kick.
Take 32.
Dreamstyle Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club or dreamstyleremodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Good morning. Welcome to the Sports Desk, live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, and with us today as our special guest is the president of AYBL, also my very good longtime friend, Dan Serrano. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ed.
No, it's always good to have you on. But Dan, I think before we go on, today we received, last night I believe, we received some very sad news with the passing of Austin Denson, the former ProView personality, 101.7 radio personality, La Cueva PA announcer. Austin, condolences to his father and mother and his family. Just a great young man. You and I were talking about it a little bit. There's a picture there of the whole ProView crew and Austin right there in the middle. And we took that about 2 years ago after one of our selection shows. And Austin, during the selection show, the basketball selection show, has all the iPad and he has all the information. He's the tech guy, right? So one thing, and they mentioned this on the ProView Rundown. A couple years ago, Scott Galletti, the voice of 101.7, had a sore throat, and he couldn't really do the play-by-play at El Dorado for the Metro tournament. And Austin, they gave him a shot to do it. And I listened. It was the first time he had ever done play-by-play, and he was as natural as anybody you've ever saw or ever heard. I listened. I was like, gosh, wow. I was so impressed. And he got to do some wonderful things in his young life. He got to go in the NFL today. He got to meet Peyton Manning at Media Day. Unbelievable stuff. And he gave the Albuquerque media, the high school kids, the PA. There it is, right there. The public address announcer, La Cueva. He was one of the best PA announcers there was. One of the best play-by-play young men. And just condolences out to the family. I know, Dan, you had your own kind of story about Austin as well.
Well, same with. I want to offer my condolences. He's a tremendous young man. I had the pleasure and the opportunity to meet him several years ago. Steve and ProView gave him an opportunity to come on and and called some of the televised and streamed AYBL championship games. So when I first met him, he showed up and he was well prepared. It's like you said, he had his iPad, he had his notes, and we're talking second graders to eighth graders, and he did his homework like he was doing an NCAA or a pro game, and very professional. And the thing that I admired the most with Austin is that considering all the constraints that he may have had in his life, he didn't let anything hold him back. He gave it all he had, and if there's anything to be said for that, it's that he lived life to the fullest.
I think what you just said hit the nail on the head right there, because he was so prepared. He learned a lot from Scott Galletti. Scott Galletti's been doing it at the professional level or college level for many, many years. There's things that I picked up from Scott when I started doing play-by-play, because I had a lot to learn. I learned under Henry T. Of course, Henry Tafoya had his own style. And there was things that he did that I didn't do, or I did and he didn't do. Everyone has their own style. But I just talked to Scott Galletti on the way in this morning, and he mentioned that he had known Austin since he was 5 years old. When Scott was the announcer for the Lobos, the Dentons would accompany the Lobos on the road. And that one time Austin was doing a video game, and 7, 8 years old, and Scott critiqued him. And it brought back, I wasn't there, but I can just imagine Austin doing that. He was a natural. That's what he was born to do. We've all got dreams that we want to do things. You and I, when I was young, I'd go around the house hitting last-second shots because of my older brother who played for Pius, and I idolized him. I did. And when I was in high school, I took his number. I wanted to always be as good as him because he was darn good. So I think we all have dreams about what we want to be. And his was at an early age doing play-by-play. I had a big smile when Scott told me that story, because, you think about it, Scott's in there critiquing him for about an hour or so on a video game, right? And so then Austin got to do it for real. And I remember when I got to do it for real with Henry T, it's a great feeling. You've done it. You did games with Henry. You did plenty of them with him. And, and it's fun.
Well, it's a calling. I mean, some people have a calling from God, is the way I look at it. And Austin had that calling. You have a calling. I mean, we're all here. We serve a purpose. And regardless of the amount of time that we're here, it's not the quantity of time. It's the quality of time that we use. And so I think Austin definitely exemplifies someone who took quality time and used it to its fullest.
He sure did in a very short period of time. I'm glad Alden Iowani, our producer, who always does a great job, got those pictures up there, because I remember when he was on the NFL Today, I was thinking, I grew up on the NFL Today, the older version with Brent Musburger, Irv Cross, Phyllis George, Jimmy the Greek. I remember the music, man. 10:30, I was always ready because the Cowboys usually played at 11, right? Da, 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 da.
I wouldn't know about the Cowboys, but I'll trust you.
Oh, you're a Cowboy fan too, right?
I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, no, that's somebody spread a vicious rumor if you heard that.
Yeah, look at Alden Iowani. He's laughing about that, big Bronco fan there. But I remember the music before 11 o'clock game. I'm watching every pregame show. So when he got to go on the NFL Today, I'm like, wow, gosh. I had tingles for him, because that's a dream that we all dream about. Most of us aren't going to get there. He did. And, again, in a short period of life, he just put so much into a short time. So, rest in peace, Austin. We love you. Condolences to the family. I know today on the rundown, the guys brought that up too, and he touched our lives in all in a different way. Our producers worked with him. Adam Deal, our play-by-play guy, Sebastian Noel, Richard Tripp, Scott Galletti, we all work with him. I got a chance to work with him just a little bit, but I was there at games when his dad was such a devoted father, and his mother as well. His father Brian, lifting him in, taking him in. His father Brian and his mother, just beautiful people, man. So, condolences to the whole family. So you want to definitely shout that out. Dan, you're right in the midst of your AYBL season that started, I think, in November.
Correct.
So, we always want to, Dan, you and I could probably talk. You've been on the mic with Mike Adams as well, and you come in. You and I played ball together, right? We played ball at Johnson together, played ball on county teams, played ball at Wells Park together, at East San Jose, Herman Sanchez / you and I go back with basketball many, many years. So tell us a little bit about the league and how AYBL, how many teams you got, things like that. Tell us a little bit about the league this year.
Well, the league's entering its 39th year, and which speaks for itself. It's a testament to itself. and the folks that have been involved in it for 39 years. The number of teams continues to go up and down every year. At I think the all-time peak, we've had probably close to 2,000 kids participating, close to 200 teams. Now, we're probably somewhere around 800 kids and about 70-some teams. And part of that's due to the fact that other programs come in or other leagues try to form, and they want a different style of play than what we offer them. AYBL, historically and even now, it's known for its competitive nature. It's a league that was set up to develop those players that want to get to the next level. And what we've come to find over the years is not every kid that's not what they want, or that's not what their parents want. We've sort of evolved into and this no disrespect to I-9, but I call it the I-9 model, where the parents are only committed to an hour and a half at the most a week. They show up, they get a few minutes of practice, they get a wristband on, they go play, then they go get breakfast or lunch, and everything's fun. You're not worried about the competition, and that's not what our league's about. I may be old school, and actually I get accused of being old school in a lot of the things that we do, but it's about getting those kids ready to go play mid-school and high school basketball. These are going to be the most competitive kids that we have in our community, and it was structured to give those kids that opportunity to compete. Now, in this day and age with parents, they don't like too much competition. They don't like no, they don't. They
Interesting.
don't. Everybody needs to get a trophy. Nobody ever fails. We don't want our kids to fail. They don't understand that it's okay to fail. If you're going to fall forward, not backward, get up and get back in the game. That's life. And if you can't subscribe to that, I think the majority of those kids are going to not be prepared to get to the next grade, to not quit college, not quit their jobs, not quit on their husbands and wives. And that's part of our philosophy is, we're teaching basketball, but we're teaching life skills through basketball.
Well, so I think it's been a part of any league that I was ever in. But I tell you, when I grew up, my brother would take me. He was older than me. He would take me to St. Pius to play against those older guys. I was 5 years old, younger than him, and I got my behind kicked more than once. But I think that always helped me because I was never afraid after that. I was like, okay, I'd get one or two a game. I'd hit one or two. But those guys were older than me. They were better than me. They were faster than me. I still remember when I was in an open gym at Pius, the old Pius, and Ron Garcia, the Albuquerque High coach, he played at Pius. Bam! He gave me a good one right to my chest, man. And that's what they did. Hey, you're a young guy out here. You're going to learn. Right. And they didn't try to hurt anybody. They just kind of let you know that, especially if you made one or two shots, they'd let you know that you're kind of treading on my territory. Like you said. And
it made you tough.
They did.
And you and I have talked about this before. What's the number one element, in my opinion, that's missing in high school sports now, looking at it from a high school, having coached high school ball, is the toughness, the mental toughness and the physical toughness. And you can't have physical toughness without having mental toughness, in my opinion. But you don't have those type of games like you had at Johnson or Carlisle or Wells Park, outdoors where...
Trumbull?
Well, Trumbull.
The old Trumbull Community Center?
No, you showed up, and if you didn't win, you had to wait an hour to get back in the game. Nobody wanted to wait.
Consequences.
So now you played hard, and the older guys weren't going to let you just punk them, per se. They were going to play hard. And as a younger guy, you had to prove yourself, so you played extra hard, and it all worked its way up. But we've evolved into a state or an environment where everyone wants to go from the bottom to the top by taking the elevator, where we took the stairs, and we knew what was in each floor, and we earned our way to the top. And it's when you get there that way that you're able to stay there. The other way, they're not staying there that long. There's no commitment.
That's so interesting because I think, all the things you said as far as basketball progression, school progression, right? Because you did the same thing in school. Now it's kind of the message taught to us by our parents. You had to learn, and each step up in my career, each step up, right? I was hired about a week ago, and there's no regrets. I gave the city of Albuquerque 30 years, man. I had a sad last Monday because I'm like, man, I got to be, so I got to, I'm always walking with a mission. When I take a walk, I'm like, we got to do this, this, and this. That lasted for about a day, and I think the rest of the week, I'm like, hey, I gave it, there's no regrets. I don't look back like, hey, I need to go back. That was done. That feeling that I had for that place was done. Not because I don't love it. It's just, hey, it's time for somebody. It's time for something else.
Well, it's the old saying our coaches had with us. Don't bring anything back into the locker room. Leave it all on the court. Leave it all on the field. And what we have now is we just don't have that commitment.
That's so interesting.
People quit so easily on everything nowadays if they don't get their way. In our days, our parents didn't let us quit. I don't let my kids quit. You're going to start something, you're going to finish it. Nowadays, what I deal with, and all the years I've been dealing with youth sports, the number one thing that concerns me and at the same time bothers me the most is that parents allow their kids to quit. And if we allow that to happen, it's that same mentality that's going to permeate and carry forth in their lives. They're going to quit on a lot of things. And we're trying to send a message to AYBL and basketball. Be committed. Be part of a team. Show that even when times are tough or you don't like something, you're not going to quit. Because times will be tough in life, as you know.
Not just in sports. We'll take a break and be back with AYBL President Dan Serrano after these messages on the Sports Desk.
Shoot. They'll get one off, and it'll count high off the window.
Oh my gosh.
There's a long three.
Boom.
Bang. Martinez will beat the buzzer. Got it to go.
Ford driving kick. Three's in the air. It's good. Nice pass on the nice block by Hernandez Crawford.
And Brown in the transition. But why not, Steve? Is Corbalan's going to go when he puts it away. And Corbalan wants to put it down. Here comes Las Cruces. Brown, you can't leave him alone. Put it down.
Gershon in transition. 3-on-2. Gershon going to go all the way. Whoa, Morgan.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rawlins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
What is glamour? Frailty. What is desire? Diamonds. They say a life lived without passion is hardly worth living.
Ma'am? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Dang, this one made me feel all special.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart. Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk Live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our special guest, AYBL President Dan Serrano. And, Dan, some of the things we were talking about during the break was old schoolism. And you always hear this from our parents. We used to walk to school 8 miles, in the snow, things like that. And I get it's a different era, right? It's a different era with millennials, and I understand that because, look, each era has to evolve. We're not going to be around forever. Our parents weren't around forever. I understand all that. I just think it's kind of interesting to me. The AYB, I coached AAU for many years. I coached at Highland High School. I miss that. I do. I miss that. And I was probably an old school coach like you along the ways that I expected certain things. I expected effort. I expected hustle. I can't stand a soft big man. I hate that. I really do. It's like if you're going to be big, play big, because I remember having a scrap with 6'5", 6'6" guys. I didn't have their ability, but I had the heart. Playing with Arnold Senna, one of Albuquerque High's great bigs. I mean, not a great scorer, right? He could have scored all he wanted to, but inside, that guy took care of business inside, man, with those tree trunk legs. He really did, and plus the heart he had. And you could say that about a lot of the Bulldog big men and also, big men that we've played with, right? And so I guess it's kind of funny that some of the things that you're telling me about the league now, and you see it, and that's not everybody, not everybody, and they're, you have to put in the work if you want to get better at anything, right? I mean, you mentioned that to me a couple years ago about practice time and wanting to work on the game. It's not just about the footwear. Some people there might be $3,000 worth of footwear on the floor, right? But you have to work on the fundamentals of the game.
And that's the key. In order to win at anything, you got to prepare for it. And that's just an ideology that's been passed on to my grandfather, to like yours and father and us, and to my kids. And one of the things that I do with AYBL that's interesting that we've carried forth over the 39 years, and part of it's been the way I was raised and coached. We all kind of, that's one of the standards we either follow or we completely put aside and try something else. But I'm coaching my youngest daughter's on a 4th grade team, mainly boys in AYBL. And it's not an AYBL role, but all the years, 30-some years I've been coaching at every level, the kids are going to wear the same stuff, and they're going to get a haircut, and they're going to look like a team. And it's a discipline measure more, and people confuse discipline with punishment, Ed. Discipline's not punishment. We're teaching them how to be part of a team. How committed are you to this team? Is it about the next guy? And I have kids whose parents come to me and say, hey, my kid shouldn't have to get a haircut. You're taking away his individuality, whatever. I mean, I don't care if you're white, brown, black, or Native American or what have you. Somebody's always going to throw something and look for a reason to not do something. And so I have the kids do that kind of stuff still. And I'm old school. I have most of the parents support it. They like it. They want that. And they see a difference in their kid when they do it. But there's always a few parents that think that, well, this isn't right. Like you said, we're in a new day and age. A kid can express themselves any way they want. You can't take that away from them. And if you do, if you're picking on this kid, it's a racial issue. If you're picking on this kid, it's a gender issue. If you're picking on this kid, and we're not picking on any kids. We're just saying, hey, look, this is what we're about. We talk to the parents and the kids about it. The kids are fine. They go tell mom or dad, and maybe one or both say, oh, we don't like that. I mean, we want you to have, hair down to your knees, or we want you to have hair up to the sky. And that's fine. I mean, they're your kids if that's what they want. But all we're asking is, hey, why don't we create a team out of them? And the interesting thing is these kids are going to grow up and they're going to go to the military, or they're going to want to be a fireman or a policeman. And they're going to be in some sort of a structured job where that's what you got to do.
Right.
And if you don't want to do it, guess what? There's probably something else you can do.
I think some of the points you make, and there's a couple of points I want to make to that. I remember playing my brother went to Pius. I went to Pius, then I transferred to Highland after my freshman year. But I was a member of the Pius Summer League, which back then, kids don't understand this. All we had was the boys club. There was no AAU travel teams, right? I remember playing for Pius and dyeing the shirt gold. We dyed it and put Pius on with black magic marker. We thought we were styling, right? And we really did. So we have a championship one time at John Adams, and I remember Wally Sanchez, the ex-Pius coach. He calls me. There's a curfew for us for sixth graders. There's a curfew. I'm in the park, and I remember going home, and it's Coach Sanchez. Hey, knucklehead, you better get some sleep. I never thought anything of it. I just thought everyone did that, right? It never occurred to me to break curfew. I was going to seventh grade. I thought this is great, right? And then later I looked at it like, wow, a curfew for a summer league game, right? But we did it, right? I think one of the things you mentioned too was even at Holy Ghost, when I played at Holy Ghost, we wanted to wear a tie and a shirt on game days. My brother did that. My brother was a styling dresser, man. I could never match my brother. A Dapper Dan is what I called him. My brother was quite the smooth dresser, man. There's no way I could compare to that. I got his hand-me-downs, right? I got my brother's hand. Proud to wear them, by the way. Proud to wear his whatever my brother gave me. But you were part of something, right? It meant something there. And now, as you mentioned, all this individual, and some of it, people are going to say, well, not everyone's going to go down that one lane, right? But back in the day, and good or right or wrong or indifferent, Coach Sanchez, Henry Sanchez from Bernalillo, one of the great coaches, right? Great coaches. You didn't date during the season. You didn't date, right? And if you did, if you were seen out with a date, the town was going to tell Coach Sanchez, right? And it got back to Coach Sanchez. And one of my friends said that, man, he had to run bleachers for hours, and you stayed, though. You stayed with it. You didn't quit because mom and dad are going to, they're going to, it's a legion of a town thing, right? I mean, you're not going to quit.
Well, and it's pride, and you're representing. And I go back, and I know you've seen this movie. I see it once a month. I think I have it on my DVR. And the Hoosiers movie, where Gene Hackman comes in, the coach, and Norman Dale's there. He's introduced. He's doing his thing. He actually even gets rid of the assistant coach who thought he was going to stay on.
Oh, it's great.
Remember, he's telling the kids this is what you're going to do, and the kids are mouthing off, and one kid quits, and his buddy says, "Oh, I'm out of here too." And then the next day, what happens? His burly man of a dad brings him in from the farm and says, "Hey, my young man has something to say to you, coach." I said, "I apologize, coach." And that's what dads did, or that's what dads should do. You're not going to quit. You're not going to leave your team hanging. You're not going to start something and not finish it, because if you do that, it's something that's going to stick with you. That's what you're always going to do. And that's what I try to teach, not just my own blood kids, but the kids I work with. When I coach them, I can't do it through AYBL, have a universal program. That would be an uproar. Everybody would be either at the NAACP or the ACLU or someone, or some lawyer would come up. And that's happened to me over the years, where lawyers have called up and say, "You can't do that, you can't do this." Well, yeah, okay, maybe we're not the program for you, because part of what we're trying to do is teach life skills. And if you don't subscribe to it, that's fine. There's probably somebody else. But we're not a public program. We're a private nonprofit.
Right, and AYBL, as you mentioned, in its 39th year, and you've been the president for how long now?
The executive director for, this is my 6th year, I think, 6th, 7th year. But I've been involved with AYBL on the board for years prior to that. You and I have talked. In the 39 years, there's only been 4 executive directors. Jim Patterson, then it went to Gene Pino, then Frank Castillo, myself. So in 39 years, if you want to talk about longevity and a discipline and a commitment to youth basketball and to teaching those life skills that we're doing, you've had four people that have stayed there, that have shown a commitment to doing this. It's not a one and done type deal. We're doing this for the betterment of the youth sports, the betterment of basketball, and the betterment of our community.
I remember when Coach Castillo was there a long time. He was Coach Castillo, people forget, coached at Fatima. I was just talking to one of my friends from Highland when Coach Castillo coached at Fatima, also coached at Cibola. Also, longtime head coach at La Cueva. And Coach Castillo's, I think he's in his late 60s and still effective. La Cueva's got they haven't had Derek Isles, their sophomore, or their senior forward, one of the best shooters in the city. He hasn't played yet this year, but I think Coach Castillo has a pretty solid team. And you think about how long the dean of Albuquerque coaches. He's been around, so long. He's won 4 or 5 championships himself. A heck of a coach, right? So, and you mentioned he's been committed to the development of youth basketball since he was the head coach at Fatima years ago. He's been around the game for 40 some years.
And you make an interesting point. You and I talked about this on a radio program a few months ago. You take a look at some of these coaches that have been around for a while, maintained longevity, maintained that type of discipline in the sport and the structure that it needs to develop. Because you understand that, parents, coaches, especially coaches, I always tell the kids, my job as a coach is to get you to do everything you don't want to do at all so you can be what you want to be. And you'll realize that at some point down the road. And they do. They come back later and tell me. But these longtime coaches, Frank Castillo, Ron Garcia, you've had Coach Brown from Academy, you've had
Roy Sanchez, Ray Rodriguez.
Yeah, you've had Wally Salado. I mean, a lot of them come from the parochial leagues. I mean, I didn't start off in the parochial league. I started off at public school and went to parochial. But a lot of these good coaches have come from the parochial leagues, and they've been able to build good programs with that same sort of discipline and mindset that you get. Like you said, we went to Catholic schools. We knew what the structure was. And we knew that this was black and this was white, and this little line, real thin line down the middle that they call the gray line, was something you didn't go into. Now we've expanded that gray line so wide that we no longer can see what's black and what's white. And that's unfortunate, and we need to close that gap.
I just don't know how that happens. I remember, though, you're talking about the parochial league. In the next segment, I want to get into how the game has changed, the three-point shooting, and wow, everything has changed so much. We'll get into that in a little bit. But back in the day in the parochial league, I played at Holy Ghost. There was Queen of Heaven, St. Mary's, Fatima, Annunciation, Assumption. We didn't play St. Teresa and St. Francis or St. Charles too much, but there was some competition in that league. When I played at Holy Ghost, Ron Beach played at St. Mary's. Ronnie was one of, he went to college at Alaska Anchorage. Ronnie, to this day, is still one of my very close friends. Very much respect for Ron. And his brothers played in the program. Kenny, David. Kenny played at Tulsa. Kenny was one heck of a player. Even a better guy. The whole family, good people. And so the parochial leagues, that's where my brother played. The parochial leagues were tough. And the feeder at that time to St. Pius, a big feeder to St. Pius. Coach Duffy, who won 3 state championships, the team in '85 that he had with Joe Harge and Ackerman and Williams and man, that team was loaded. Coach Duffy had some real strong teams. He'd be the first to tell you that. And again, he did a great job in coaching them. But the parochial league back in the day was loaded.
They produced great players. And a couple quick stories. I mean, you talk about the Beaches, the Harge brothers, Jimmy Mitchum. I mean, over at Fatima, right?
Did he go to Fatima?
Yeah.
Because then he went to Highland for a year, and then he went to Pius after that.
And then he went on and played at
DePaul.
And I think they got to the Final Four.
They did.
With the Raymond. I mean, there's been some good players that have come to this league, to the parochial league that have gone on to play high school. But I remember years ago, we did a show here, and Coach Holzman and I were in the waiting room, and we got to talking about Albuquerque High basketball when I first started coaching with Coach Garcia. And he said, hey, look, I'm going to tell you something, Dan. He says, I went to Lincoln and got these players, and I went to Washington, but Washington was in the district, and I got these players, and I went to St. Mary's, and I got these players. And that's how I did it. That's how I built a winning program.
Remember, Greg Brown, the Albuquerque High legendary guard, went to St. Mary's. He went to St. Mary's, and then he went to Albuquerque High. Now, Coach Holzman, all due respect to Coach Holzman and all my Bulldog friends out there, there's a lot of them. They had some, think about it. St. Mary's. Okay, he mentioned what other schools? Lincoln.
Lincoln, when it was around, yeah.
Okay, Washington.
Washington.
Okay, so from the Kirk, the Sticks, Barelas, East San Jose, Martineztown, he got the best of the best. And again, he's a great coach. I'm not saying that. Great assistants around him. The late Alvin Metters. That still hurts me about Alvin. It's still fresh in my mind. Rest in peace. Dave Romo, Ron Garcia, Ron Estrada, Abe Estrada, Gil Miranda back in the day. I mean, they had a team, right? So Dave Romo grew up playing there. They're not going to lose, right? Alvin Metters, state champion in '71. Pete Pino, by the way, too. I forgot about Coach Pino. Better not forget about Coach Pino. Javelina, the defense. I still read Javelina. I still hear that. So think about that. The guys that they got, and we can go on and on and on and list them all. And if I forget a couple, I'll hear about it. they were so dang tough, mentally and physically tough. As you mentioned, mental toughness, I don't know that anybody epitomized that better than they did. Now, I never backed down, and I didn't, but I didn't have enough guys on my team. My guys were good too, but they intimidated a lot of people, though. They did.
But you represented your neighborhood. You represented your area.
Yes.
They represented their barrio neighborhood.
Oh, my goodness.
Everybody represented. We've evolved to a point now where if you don't want to be here, you can go here. If you don't like it there, you can go here.
Way different now. Gosh, you know what? You're not kidding, because yes, I did represent where I lived, right? I wanted to. And, I hear stories about, you mentioned Killer Park. Ronell Brown, the great Albuquerque High running back and also a great basketball player, would tell me how they would play 21 up there. And I'm not even going to tell you what they called it. It's probably not for the air, but yeah, just some tough places. Yeah, this discussion about basketball has morphed into some different things, but some great memories. When I think of it, man, it really makes me smile. Let's take a break. We'll be back to the sports desk after these messages.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, #life change will occur.
The world-famous Laguna Burger is beautifully handcrafted. A burger that's created from certified Angus beef, sinfully cooked to juicy perfection, and garnished with New Mexico's Hatch green chili. Tempt your taste buds with mouth-watering fresh ingredients.
Cut! We're gonna need another Laguna Burger. Try the irresistible, world-famous Laguna Burger. Visit thelagunaburger.com. It's fresh with a kick. Take 32.
Dreamstyle Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club, or DreamStyleRemodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this? Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog! Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened? Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk Live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alda Niawani. We've got AYBL President Dan Serrano in the house with us, also former Albuquerque High assistant coach. And you just stopped this year, Dan. You got a lot of things going on. Talk to us a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit more about basketball. You mentioned some other memories of playing in Spartan Alley, the old Spartan Alley, which a lot of people wouldn't remember. I remember it very well because my brother played for St. Pius. And I remember going up there, and one time Bernalillo beat Pius. And I rode back with Wally Sanchez, and I remember Wally and Ed Sanchez, his brother, were in the truck, and Wally's telling us, Ed and Ed, duck, they're going to start throwing rocks. And I'm like, okay, why would they throw rocks? They won. But Coach Sanchez had seen that, had been there, when Pius played there. So I remember this, and I want you to talk about your little memory of playing there with Mike Romero. You just mentioned a great Mike Romero, one of the greatest guards in New Mexico history. What people forget, and I don't know why, I have no idea. This guy was one of the best I ever saw. Played with him, played against him, and he was just unbelievable. But I remember the memory I have of Spartan Alley is going over there and Ken Wood, the PA guy. And I remember like it was yesterday because my brother, that's my hero. I didn't kind of miss my poor brother had to drag me everywhere because I was not going to miss any of his games. There's no way. I remember when the Spartans came out, Ken Wood, here come the run and gun Bernalillo Spartan. That place goes crazy, right? And it's a small gym, very small, very, And I remember their fans were just right on top of you, right on top of you. And I don't know, I think it's still open. I think they still use it for mid-school games. But talk about a little memory you had over there playing against Mike Romero, and people forget this, got signed by the Lobos when Norm Ellenberger was recruiting Kenny Page, Russell Saunders, Phil Abney, Andre Logans from New York. And so he got signed by the Lobos, and I think people might have forgot that. But tell us a little memory you had about playing against Mike there.
You take away a bad break with Mike, he would have probably had a stellar career there.
I think so.
He would have done well. And one heck of a player. And, I think the last time we played against him was at Wells Park. He was coming by and playing with some of us at the lunch bunch, remember?
Right.
And get some games in, still play. But that old Spartan Alley, I mean, you're right. They're right on top of you. I remember games that the ref would say, hey, just as long as you have 1 foot back here. You remember back in the 70s, mid-70s, you wore short shorts.
Short shorts.
And
John Stockton shorts.
Yeah.
Ken Murphy would wear those. Remember the referee?
Yeah,
Ken Murphy always wore those.
Maybe a little shorter to us back then, but
yeah.
But you'd get there, and I remember the old back then the old concession stand. As you bought a Coke, you pulled the tab off. Remember? So the Bernalillo fans, they kept their tabs, so when you went by them, they'd
scratch you up a little bit on the legs.
That let you know that you're not welcome. But we had some good games, and Mike, he did some great things in that game. And I know one time we had him trapped in, actually had him trapped in the corner, picked up his dribble, and he thought he was going to throw the ball off the leg, and he just throws it up and hits put enough spin where it hit the inside top of the backboard, spun in, and he turns around and just shrugs it off and say, and for those of you that understand Spanish, it's sapos count, and sapo mean, sometimes, well, I guess sapo would be kind of a lucky, miraculous deal, but good games, good memories. We go back, but it's when we had games where the town shut down. They rolled up the carpet and went and watched, and we had those pride games. You represented, because you talk about your brother. He represented. You wanted to represent, and that's what you worked hard on, is being the next guy to get to that position. In this day and age, and this year in a small town for the most part, and even that's changed. I talk, having coached for a while and been around, running AAU for the state. If you're in a small town, you don't like it, you just go rent an apartment somewhere else and do this. And I'm not sure we'll ever get back to where, hey, you got to go to school where you live, but it brought out a lot of pride, and the gyms would get packed, and the rivalries were good, and it was all fun, and that's what it was about. And we're not seeing a lot of that now, and I think, unfortunately, the kids miss out on a lot of what we had.
Let me ask you this, though, because it's a new era, right? Every era is different. They've got the video games, they've got the Snapchats, FaceTimes, they've got different distractions than we did, right? And I tell kids this, that we had 3 channels. We didn't have a remote. You had to get up to change the channel, right? There's no 6,000 channels, right? There's no Siri saying, Siri, play this. There's none of that. And the kids look at you like, what? They can't understand. They can't wrap their heads around it. And even when our parents grew up, no TVs, right? They really didn't, might have had a radio. One guy told me one time, Mario Andrade's grandfather, Mr. Andrade, he was friends with my father, and he came up and told me this, and he says, your grandfather had the only radio in the whole neighborhood. So when I was like, I just got a memory. I never really got to meet my grandfather. Died when I was 3, but it made me give me tingles that, hey man, and that was back then, right? And so the kids these days have different interests, right? They say that a lot of millennials don't even want to watch a 3-hour football game. Like, I'll sit there for the Cowboys, and every snap, every down, I time my breaks, right? I don't want to miss one play.
Well, you're glutton for punishment, Ed.
Don't laugh at that, man.
I'm just kidding, but you make a good point. Like, you ask my dad, hey, what did you guys do in the 30s? Well, we watched the radio. That's his version of trying to bring it up to there. You're right. We had 3 channels, and if we wanted to get one of them, like when the Lobo games would come on, and we'd all gather around the little black and white, and it wasn't the 80-inch. It was, if you had a 17-inch, you were pretty good. And fine-tune the channel, get it up, and then send one of the younger brothers up to the roof to hold the antenna so you can get good reception in the cold and wind.
Yeah.
But
no dish, no direct TV.
And I mean, that's what you did. And of course, we spent more time outside, and we did more things a little bit differently. Our thumbs might not be as strong as the kids nowadays, but nonetheless, we worked hard. But it is a different era. But a lot of the things that we've had in the past, a lot of those things you need to continue to play forward. You need to continue to not lose the perspective of what they are. You know, good is good and bad is bad still. And right is right and wrong is wrong still. And working hard and earning something is working hard and earning something still. Otherwise, we're going to completely get out of whack. And when we get out of whack, it's when we start to run into the type of problems and issues that we have in society nowadays.
I don't know that that there's a pullback on some of that. Some of the things go, and it's hard. It's generational change. But I think you're right. I know you raised your kids in kind of the way you were brought up. We try to raise our son the same way, and certainly we made mistakes, and that nobody's saying that either one of us are perfect. We're not saying that. But I get what you're saying. It's almost like everyone expects something out of something without, all the work, right? The work that you had to get there to do it, whether it be basketball, my profession, your profession. You built homes for many years. We'll talk about your proposed new sports complex. You've been talking about that for since I've known you. I've known you back at UNM days, where we were also very close associates when I was the director at Cesar Chavez Community Center. And it seems that was 20 years ago. And I'll look back and I'll walk in there, and man, all the memories will come flooding back. Mrs. Alborn Clifton, the neighborhood community that I was so proud to be part of, man. That was a great part of a career. So time flies so quick, and I think, as you mentioned, everything changes. But I think just the way the competitiveness these days, I think it drives me crazy sometimes when I see guys after the game. I know when we lost, I barely want to shake hands. The guys are changing jerseys and taking pictures. That's the way it is now, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what you do with that, right?
Well, I'm not saying it's bad.
Right.
What I'm saying is that we can't just dismiss everything that was good about the past, that we still try to keep moving forward. And by that I mean there needs to be discipline, there needs to be structure, there needs to be a commitment to what you're doing, there needs to be an understanding that you're not going to get anything for free. And in order to succeed, you got to prepare to succeed. In order to win, you got to prepare to win. You got to have respect. You got to respect authority. Those type of things. We can't get too far out of whack. Things do change. I mean, we're never going to go back to having radios or 3 channels on a black and white. So that's not going to happen. But we can understand that there's some things we need to move forward. And you're right. We had some great memories. We go back. I mean, 20 years seems like yesterday. We talk about the Cesar Chavez Community Center. Miss Clifton, God bless her soul, and all the work that she had out there. I have a great Alborn Clifton story. She was so frustrated. She worked hard to get that community center.
Neighborhood Association president.
Neighborhood Association president in Trumbull, and she did not want it to be named Cesar Chavez Community Center because in her mind he wasn't from here. It needed to be named something else. I think, as a matter of fact, I think she wanted to extend it and keep it the Phil Chacon Community Center. And I remember the mayor at that time. I'm not going to mention his name, but you know who he is or was, and. He said, man, she's not going to let go. And so it was a Friday evening. I get some of my guys from the construction company. We get the letters from the city. We go put them on the little outdoor sign. That way the next morning I could take Miss Clifton out there and say, hey, look, it's already a done deal. They already put the sign up. And when she saw that, she said, well, I guess so. And she left it alone.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
And nobody knows that story.
Yeah.
Till now,
I mean, I don't think you ever told me that one.
But that's how we calmed it out. Of course, she and I had a real good relationship. I mean, I may have told you, Tom, about 250 basketballs for the kids out in the neighborhood.
I think you did.
And they were using the park. And the biggest complaint, Nick Backus was captain over at the Southeast Area Command of the police department. And the biggest complaints they always had in that neighborhood were the tat-tat-tat of gunfire all the time. Well, biggest complaint he started getting, he called me and said, hey, they're not going to believe us now. They're complaining that all they hear is basketballs, the pat-pat-pat of basketballs all day long.
It's good noise. It's good sound.
Hey, I'll take that pat-pat over the tat-tat-tat any day of the week.
That's a great story, great sound there. We got one more segment left on the sports desk for these messages.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rawlings, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
What is glamour? Frailty. What is desire? Diamonds. They say a life lived without passion is hardly worth living.
Ma'am? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Dang, this one made me feel all special.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk, live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alden Iowani. Our special guest has been AYBL President Dan Serrano. And Dan, gosh, what a great basketball talk, because those memories we were talking about, you know, Trumbull Community Center, the outdoor, people don't even remember that the Summer League was played outdoors. Mm-hmm. One of the memories I have was my brother playing for Pius, playing against Fred Whitaker of West Mesa. I remember that, you know, at Wells. Wells, Trumbull Community Center, which doesn't even have a court anymore, right? They got rid of that court about 10 years ago. And I remember going there on Sunday afternoons, man. And you better bring it if you went over to Trumbull. You better bring it.
Well, like Wells Park. You know, people don't know this, or actually, a lot of them probably don't know it now, but Wells Park was one of the top 10 outdoor playground courts in the country to go play at.
That's right. They named that in a, I remember that outdoor hoop book. Mm-hmm. I think Arnold Senna had that book. I remember that. Gosh, that's a great memory too.
You'd go there and you'd see some players.
I wonder what happened to that book. Yeah, I do remember that. Dan, you know, we got one topic we definitely want to talk about is your proposed indoor basketball court that you've been talk about. You know, you wanted to build here for several years. Talk about its progress and where you are with that, and you're talking about maybe breaking ground.
I think we're real close to breaking ground. We're doing some modifications to the design. It's a 10-court facility with 20 volleyball courts in it. We've located a piece of land that I think we've got tied up, ready to go on the west side. We're talking to some key players in town that are very supportive, both publicly and politically, to help make this happen. They have the same vision with youth sports and consolidating things. I think it takes a huge load off of the APS is back with respect to practice gyms and playing gyms and liability issues and what have you, because that's our biggest issue, is getting enough facility space to be able to accommodate the need for it. But the biggest component to this whole thing is that it's going to generate jobs, not just during construction, but after it's built. We're putting more officials, we're training younger officials to replenish the ranks, we're putting people to work, we're running not just youth sports, but adult sports and senior sports and basketball and volleyball and pickleball.
Great.
And it's
Great.
sport, and this is the greatest part of this whole thing, is it's sports economic development for the city, this community, because we're going to be bringing teams that want to come from out of state or out of the city to come bring their teams to play major tournaments here. As the state AU basketball director, I can start bringing more big-time AU tournaments here because we're going to have that space. And those folks are going to come here and stay at the hotels and eat at the restaurants and shop at the shopping centers. Our gross receipts tax revenue is going to go up. Our lodgers tax revenue is going to go up. And it's just going to expand itself. And because we're bringing these folks in, those vacant parcels of land near where we're going to be, they're going to want to develop those parcels to be able to feed what we're bringing. So it's a win-win situation for the kids, the business people, the community. We're on to something real good, and I think we're real close to breaking ground. And the support that we're starting to get within the community is percolated to a point where I think we're about to pour a cup of basketball coffee.
Wow, I love the way you described it, and it's a business domino effect. I love the way you talked about that. You know, I worked for the Department of Senior Affairs. As I mentioned, I retired, but the economic impact of the senior games this summer, I couldn't have told you how great they went. The weather held up. It wasn't too hot. I was out there. Pickleball was my assignment at Manzano Mesa. I was out there one night. It was about 78, 70. You know, it's cool, not boiling hot. And the seniors that came for the games really liked our venue. Everything went right. They want to come back. And so I think there was a lot of great economic impact with that. So what you're talking about with your sports complex, your proposed sports complex, pickleball, basketball, volleyball, not just basketball. And it's important you and I are hoopers, right? At Manzano Mesa, I had to be nice to the shuffleboard people, the volley, everybody. So I think you could probably even get shuffleboard in there too.
Well, for all ages.
Right. And I'm just, and I'm thinking about it because I ran a multi-generational center. So your vision to me really hits home because it's going to be a pickleball. You know how huge that is? Man, that thing took off. That really did. They started at Manzano Mesa like 2007 or 2008, and that thing just, you know, it was elsewhere too. I'm not saying it started just there, but it just took off. And those courts outside of Manzano Mesa were supposed to be tennis courts. Pickleball players went to the city council, and they're pickleball courts. So I think that's a great proposal. Dan, any kind of idea when it might be ready? I mean, if you let's just say.
Well, it's been years in the works. I mean, it's not a cheap project. There's a lot of moving parts. We've been putting those parts together. It's like a puzzle and bringing people together. Believe it or not, there's some folks out there that are not in favor of something like this. Even though it's a private venture, they tend to think that we don't need this. And there's always those type of folks, you know. But I'm hoping to break ground sometime before summertime, if we can. And if we can do that, it'd be great, barring that we don't have any other issues. Because like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. We got to bring infrastructure, and we need to make sure the roads are adequate. There's a lot of things that go along with it.
Oh yeah.
And
be a couple of your projects.
Well, and of course we got to service the construction debt and service the permanent debt and get all that in place. But we have some good people working with us that have stepped up in the community that have been here for a while and are concerned about the future of the community, future of youth sports, youth basketball. And we're bringing all those pieces together, like I said, and once we get it all together, it's going to be beautiful.
It would help out too. We've got about a minute left, but the rentals of gymnasiums, it's hard to get practice time. That will help too, because I know, at Manzano Mesa, we just didn't have the time to do that. And Family Community Services did rent out a lot of their gyms for that. So that might help in that regard as well, as many courts as you're proposing. Dan, one last final word. Your AYBL season wraps up when? One final word.
Well, we're about to take our middle break with Christmas for the AYBL. Then the postseason tournaments will start in mid-February to the end of February. We have a lot of hoop coming up, not just AYBL. We got some AU tournaments coming up. We're doing a huge AU tournament December 27th to 29th here in the city to bring a lot of those teams in. That something we've been doing for years. We have, then we have, high school basketball. It doesn't get any better than that.
Great time of season here. Dan Serrano, AYBL president, also former Albuquerque High assistant coach. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you, Ed.
You bet.
Thanks.
For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll be back next week on the Sports Desk.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of